everybody. We are live. We are live, baby, live. As I like to say, this is, I'm Tim Mooney. I should probably introduce myself. And this lovely pink place is where I live. If we refer to it as the Pink Palace, kind of ironically. It's about 600 square feet here in Washington, D.C. I was not involved in the design of this house. I'm just going to say that straight up. I like living here, but this is not my design aesthetic. If you were here for the first live show, you would have seen my cabin, which is a little bit more my aesthetic. While I genuinely can get into the concept of the sparkly chandeliers, the pig paintings, and all the flashy accoutrements here, that is more a design aesthetic for my lovely girlfriend, Kimberly. So, but that is not why you're here. You're not here for, like, you know, an architectural digest or a home and gardens review of the Pink Palace in Washington, D.C. You're here for the Pedalshift project. And this is going to be the live show for episode number 127, which is very exciting for me. It's been a minute since I've done a show. Many of you have been on the ride for the last few episodes. For the, I think it was like 7 episodes actually, where we talked all about the Katy Trail. And that was really cool and exciting and fun. And I really liked telling that story episodically like that. Got some good feedback. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm now excited to talk about something else. You know, Missouri was awesome, but it's time to talk about new things. And one of the great things tonight and on this episode, we're going to be talking about my next tour. We're also going to be talking about some good news on a couple of routes of note that I ride a lot. Both the C&O, the Chesapeake and Ohio National Historic Park Towpath. I think that's the full thing of it. It's a trail that goes here, right over here actually, from Georgetown, Washington, D.C., all the way to Cumberland, Maryland. It's about 184.5 miles. There's been some stuff with it. I rode out there this weekend. Did a little mini weekend tour. I'll talk a little bit about that on this episode, and we'll also be getting into the closures there. Also, we've got some good news on the Pacific Front, the Pacific Coast Tour. I've got some good news on that, and we'll be sharing that in the second half of the show. So that is what we're doing. Thought I would quickly take a look at the chat room. All we've got so far, by the way, if you are on the YouTube side of things, click through. There is a chat box there. Feel free to, you know, be like the class clown in the back of the class and just kind of talk away. I will probably not be seeing most of what you're going to be saying while I am actually doing the show. I've got a podcast to make here, people. You see the microphone. It's right here. But I will honestly be taking a look through the show from time to time, taking little timeouts here and there to be able to interact with you a little bit. It's sort of the nice little medium here. Happy medium? Happy medium, is that what we call them? A couple of other housekeeping notes. Number one, you may or may not be able to hear animals in the background. We are the proud owners of 3 pugs and a cat. Now the cat he's out there because that is for your listening pleasure. The other 3 dogs are asleep all around me, but if you were here for the first live show, you know that 2 of them got into a scrap. And that can happen from time to time. So I may have to pause things, I may have to do things like that. It's just, that's what I do when I'm doing a podcast without you all here. So that's another piece right there. But I would love to know, there's a fair number of people in the room right now. I would love to know where you're tuning in from. Throw it into the chat box. And let me know, and then we can do a little bit of chatting prior to the show. We'll probably get started in about maybe 4 or 5 minutes or so. Get to a critical mass here before we start the actual podcast itself. But I'd love to know where you're all from. Byron, I know you're in the house. I'm curious where you're from. In the interim, I think I can talk a little bit more about. Let's see. This is where I go to my show notes, right? Because I'm addled and have very little brain cells left because of what I've done to myself over the years. Let me talk a little bit about the C&O ride this weekend. I'll get a little bit more into it as we get further into the show when we do the actual recording of the show. I was originally planning on going Tim Burns, Cincinnati, Ohio. Thank you. By the way, I'm thinking of doing a Cincinnati trip. That Ohio and Erie Canal looks very interesting to me. I just thought I'd mention that. The C&O canal, however, I was originally going to take Belle Star with me, and Belle Star is down here, and if she weren't so sound asleep, I would actually kind of wake her up and show her to you, but maybe she'll wake up and get into the show a little bit later. It just was too hot on that first Friday, and eventually it actually got a lot. It wasn't as cool as I think it was meant to be or supposed to be. It was comfortable enough to ride, and it was really great. And again, I'll talk more about that as we get into the actual show itself. But it was funny because I had the whole setup ready for her with you may have seen pictures of this, and I put a crate, and she gets in a bag, and she goes there. But when I made the call late in the day, just maybe even within an hour before leaving, that I think it was better for her to stay here in DC in the air conditioning. I still had the dog setup. So my touring setup was this really heavy, weird setup that was meant for carrying a dog with me. And it was just very strange, especially considering what I'll be doing. Part of the reveal for tonight's show is that I'm actually going to be going with a little more minimalist setup. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Byron, you are from Australia. I am so happy to see that. Oz is on my list for bike touring in the future as well. I think I did an episode a billion years ago, I feel like, on cycling in Australia. It wasn't an interview with anybody, but I remember that vaguely. For those of you who have binged the show recently and actually remember what I've done in the past, this is what I'm really worried about. At some point, I'm going to completely repeat a show that I've already done. Fairly positive that's going to happen. And I'm not going to realize it, and it's going to require emails from you, the gentle listener, to let me know that I repeated a show, and then to tell me which one was better. All right, we got Brad Hipwell, friend of the show. Hi, Cleveland, Ohio. Thomas Skadow, Polk City, Iowa. Thomas, has Ragbri happened yet? That's another one that I'm thinking of doing someday. Byron, highs of 60 degrees, 15 Celsius in Australia. That's because it's winter there. Because it's stupid hot here. It's nice and wintry down there. Lucifer's Liege, greetings from Denver. Hello, Lucifer, or Liege. I don't know what I would call you. I'll call you, if you're Lucifer's Liege, you have a name, but it's possessive to Lucifer, so, okay. Anyways, DBR question mark, did the cross country not a race? That I am trying to figure out is, oh, this is Byron in Australia, sorry. Every once in a while, again, addled brain. I wish I could decipher that, but you will help me out. All right, folks, I think that we're getting close to that time where I'm going to attempt to create a podcast for you. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sip of this. One of the things I have discovered when I do a live show, is I'm talking constantly, and so I don't get a chance to drink. So we're gonna take a brief pause. Everyone, please indulge. I used to get a beer for the shows, but then they would just get warm and flat, and that's kind of a waste of a beer as far as I'm concerned. Lucifer's Liege says I can call him John, which is nice. He's off the clock. Oh, that's fantastic. Paul Culbertson, hello, sir, friend of the show, Vancouver, Washington. The other Vancouver, right? What did I do? Oh no, that was the other Portland that I did from the video. I thought that was funny. I hope people thought that was funny. But Vancouver is lovely. I like Vancouver a lot. I'm not one of those Portland-centric people that thinks Vancouver is a bad place. I enjoy it greatly. In fact, my brother's in-laws live in the great city of Vancouver, Washington. So, all right, folks, I think it is about time to actually do a podcast. Again, episode 127. If you've been here for a live show, you sort of know the drill. I am going to try to sort of talk towards you. Do not be offended that I sometimes will look down here, because this is where my notes are, right here, which is why I'm going to be looking towards it. Also, it helps with my mic technique. So that's that. Stick String! Hey, man. How are you? That's basically it. Oh, the other weird thing. So when you do a podcast, you got room noise, ambient room noise. Brock did us. Hello, sir. Are you in Canada right now? I'm going to wait for this, although that could take him a while. Brock Dittus Brock Dittus of the Sprocket Podcast. For those of you who are not listeners, are not subscribers to the Sprocket Podcast, I can say that. please do. It is an excellent show. It is kind of the companion show, I would say, to this, and a far better and more well done version of it. Let's see, who else? Nope, that's everybody else. Rapid City, South Dakota. Oh, that's awesome. I dig on South Dakota. I've been there a few times. Of course, driving across country, went to, the usual kind of touristy places. What a beautiful state. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Brock, welcome back to Portland. Amazing pictures from your trip. That looked really cool. He was in Canada doing a lot of hiking with his lovely wife, Adele. By the way, whose hair looked fantastic. Please tell Adele her hair looked fantastic. And I say that with all the love in my heart because her hair looked fantastic. I don't know why. It stuck out to me. Tell no one I was in a car. Don't worry, nobody is paying any attention to this. And this isn't actually part of the podcast, so you don't have to worry about it. Oh, but it is on the video part. Sorry. Let's see, Stick Strings from Michigan. There for work. Would love to ride here. Yes, Michigan is a beautiful place. I'm going to do my ability to show that I have Michigan roots. My mom is from here, great city of Detroit. My brother went to the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. My grandparents lived in Warren for all of my life, but were originally from Detroit. So, with that little bit of history behind you, let's get started on the show. As I was saying, I was about to say room noise. So one of the things about doing a podcast is that there is room noise. I know that sounds really weird, but it's that hiss that's sort of in the background. You don't even hear it, but it's there because the microphone picks it up. So I take about 5-10 seconds of just pure silence, and then I can continue because I take that silence and that helps scrub out the room noise. I hate to tell you how the sausage is made. That is one of the ways that the sausage is made. So here we go. It is now time for the silence leading into episode 127. Thank you for joining, everyone. Really, really good. Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride. Let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/127, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or call the voicemail hotline at 202-930-1109. Check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. I'm going to turn to the camera because we are live, baby, live for episode 127. Hello, YouTube. Hello, live people. Hello, not live people, because here's a little tip for you. If you can't make the live show, you can still check it out afterwards because it's all archived in the Pedalshift YouTube page, which I hope you're going to go see a lot more frequently because I'm making more videos. And I hope you got a chance to see all four of them, the 4 chapters of the videos for the Missouri tour. Again, my addled brain here. I was talking in the pre-show banter with folks in the live room that I have an addled brain, and that is definitely evidence of it right there. So this is a show where we're going to be talking about my August tour plans, plus some interesting news about my discoveries on C&O Trail this weekend. Oh, by the way, I did a weekend little kind of getaway on the C&O and did some camping, discovered some cool things that are going on with the C&O because, as you have heard from me on multiple occasions, there's an outage there around mile marker 52 or so. Well, I decided that I would ride out there and back over the course of this weekend and check it out for myself, and I have some interesting news. So I'll be sharing that with you in the second half of the show. Also, a little bit of good news about the West Coast and the Pacific Coast Tour route. As many of you know, Big Sur has been just sort of locked down and closed off on Highway 1 for part of a year or so, I think. So we've got some good news on that, so we'll be sharing that. We like good news. We like good news in the bike touring industry. We like good news generally. Good news is good. We prefer good over bad. So let's talk about my next bike tour, and that's going to be when we get into the journal. All right, so everybody in the live show, this is where I put in like fancy effects, you know, like that, except it'll not be my voice. Be better. Journal is a part of the show where I talk about bike tours, your tours, and mine. And in this instance, we're going to be talking about my next big bike tour, and that is coming in August. I wish I had a drum roll to play for the people in the live room, but I don't. I may even not do it for the podcast, but drum roll in your head. Just put a little drum roll in your head. My next tour is going to be the Oregon coast with a twist. For those of you who are thinking, wow, I can't wait for Tim to say something new and different that he's never done before, I'm sorry to disappoint you in that sense. However, here's the fun part. Well, let me back up. Let me talk why I keep going back to the Oregon coast. The Oregon coast, first of all, in the teeth of summer in the East Coast where it's hot and sticky and humid, going to the Oregon coast is so fantastic. Even though the weather in the Portland area has changed since I lived there when it was an absolute paradise all summer long. Now you'll get triple digits and nobody has air conditioning because you never needed it before. But the coast is great because you get those nice cool breezes, and you know, you'll end up with days in the 60s, nights in the 50s. It's bike touring paradise, right? So I like touring the coast because it has great amenities. I think you know, you've got tons of great campsites. You've got tons of places to go eat. You don't have to stress out about your trip. It's got beautiful coastline. I've had pictures up. You've seen pictures of the amazing coastline. It's challenging, but it's not, you know, a death march, right? It's got hills, but it's not these, you know, crazy Brocktida style hills. Hi, Brock. But the problem with the Oregon coast is the end, the access time. In order to do the southern part of the coast, I have found that it is really, really difficult to figure out a way to get back. The southern coast doesn't have, or at least historically had not had, any way to get back up to Portland, which is sort of the way that I like to do things. You want to go from north to south because of the predominant winds. Portland's an easier place to fly in and out of rather than, say, Medford or Ashland or something like that. So that's always been a problem. Anytime I've wanted to do the Oregon coast, it's either I go down to Newport and then I turn around, or I go all the way down to San Francisco, or at least to Northern California. It's kind of tricky because those towns are smaller. They don't have kind of the amenities to be able to handle stuff, to handle getting you and your bike back until now. So the southernmost town in the state of Oregon of note is Brookings. And for years, the book is, I believe, Bicycling the Oregon Coast, or Bicycling the Pacific Coast, right? That is a great book, except it's thoroughly and completely out of date. There's a new book that I've seen, I picked up, and it looks pretty good. But in the purple book, the book, as I've always referred to it for years, it keeps saying, or it has said, because at the time it was probably true, there was a Greyhound bus out of Brookings, and you could come up that way. Not true. It's been gone for years. So getting back from Southern Oregon has always been a bit of a crapshoot. You couldn't really do it very easily or very inexpensively. However, what if there were a way? What if there were a way to link, say, transit? And that is where we get the twist. I've been keeping an eye on the public transit on the coast for years, and from about the middle southern portion of the coast, it's always been linked together in a really good way. So if all you're doing is going down to Newport or even down to Yachats, if you're not familiar with the state of Oregon, just get out a map. You can kind of see all these towns. Yachats, by the way, is spelled Yachats, but it's Yachats. There is something new, though, because Yachats isn't far enough south for me. I need to get to Brookings, all the way down. I want to be able to tag that California sign, and I want to turn around and go back to Portland. And finally, I can do it because this year, sometime, and maybe it happened last year, but this is the first time I was able to see it, is Curry Public Transit. Go to currypublictransit.org if you're on one of your internet machines, which I guess you must be because you're watching this or listening to this. You will see that they have bus service that goes northbound quite a ways. So it solves a major piece and it connects a major piece. For those of you who remember a few Augusts ago when I did a crazy stunt, when I kind of had the same idea of linking together bus and train transit systems from DC all the way up to Boston. This is kind of the same idea, except it's not as far and it's not quite as bananas crazy as that trip. But it will require more bicycling on my part going on the northbound route. So anyways, I want to give a little bit of an overview. I'll have all of this in the show notes that you can take a look at. That's pedalshift.net/127, including, of course, links to Curry Public Transit, because that's the key one. So Brookings is not far from the border, and I can basically go down, tag the California sign, turn around, and come back to Harris Beach State Park, which is just north of the town of Brookings, and that is the beginning of the northbound route. But I don't have as much time as I would have liked. I would have liked to have done an Astoria, cross the Columbia like I did this spring, and go all the way down and do the entire Oregon coast. Unfortunately, I just don't have that schedule available to me, and to be able to spend some time in Portland, I had to make a few changes on that. So suffice to say, it is possible now, using the system that I'm going to be experimental about, to get from to do the Oregon coast north to south and then return back to Portland using this crazy messed up system that I've come up with. So I'm going to take the bus from Portland to Tillamook. I'm going to take the bus to Newport and then stay at South Beach State Park that very first night. That is one of I'd say in the state of Oregon, there are a lot of great ones, but that's one of my favorites because I get to go to Brewers on the Bay, the Rogue Brewing Company's wonderful place to grab a dinner, grab some beers. It's a great place to kick off a tour, I find, Newport, or to end it. So I go from there, I go to Florence. These are the same campsites that I always stay at because I love them. I'm going to knock my water bottle for those of you on the live feed. I love them that much. So I go to Honeyman State Park, that's near Florence, Oregon, then to Sunset Bay, which is near North Bend, Humbug Mountain, which is near Port Orford, and then the next day, I make a border run from there. Now, normally that's my long day. For those of you who followed my Pacific Coast route, my preferred thing to do from Humbug Mountain is to do a 75-mile day through not insignificant terrain to get basically down to Crescent City. This time I won't have to go that far. It's actually kind of fun that way, that I won't have to work as hard coming out of Humbug Mountain because it's usually a bit of a day for me, but it's worth it. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go through Brookings. I may or may not stop at Harris Beach first and drop off all my stuff and go unloaded. I'll have to decide on that. If I'm feeling it, if I've got momentum and just want to do it, I'll cruise through. Go through Brookings, go all the way down to the end, to the state border, tag the sign, do the selfie, you know, the usual. And then I'm going to turn around. For the first time ever, turn around and go back north, because that's where I think the fun kind of starts. So I get this great coastal bike tour, and then I get this crazy stunt, which I'm really excited about. So what I'm going to do is go back up to Harris Beach State Park. Again, that's just north of Brookings. And then the fun begins, because I have to get up stupid freaking early that next morning. From there, I go back down south. It's like a mile. It's not that big of a deal. To the city of Brookings, and I catch a bus. That is Curry Public Transit. You can go from Brookings, this is the key, all the way back up to North Bend, Oregon for $20 plus $5 for the bike. So it's not cheap as far as public transit goes, but man, does that just zoom you right up there. Now, before, the southernmost point was Yachats, Oregon, so we still got a gap. We've got to get further north from North Bend to Yachats. So what do? I ride an extra 60 miles after that bus ride. So the bus starts at 7:20 a.m. out of Brookings, gets to North Bend just before 11 a.m., and then I get a full day of riding on top of that. And I'll end up at a new to me state park, Washburn State Park, that is near Florence. It's actually north of Florence. So I'm kind of excited to try out a new state park, but it's also conveniently located because it's only 11 miles south of Yachats. Again, Yachats, the very, 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 very key city for me. That is where I can pick up the southern terminus of the buses that'll eventually get me northbound. So on that next day, I wake up again, stupid early. There is a 7 a.m. bus out of Yachats, and I have to ride 11 miles to catch it. You do the math. Then it's a series of buses. Yachats to Newport, and that's on Lincoln County Transit. Newport to Lincoln City to Tillamook, and then Tillamook to Portland. You can look all of these up. I've got the links in the show notes if you want to go check these all out. But that section of the Oregon coast, if you just Google Oregon Coast bus, you'll see this entire completely connected system. And okay, our Google Home just like went off because I said Yachats too many times, I think. That's what we call a live show, kids. Anyway, so I get up to Yachats and do that crazy all day ride. You would think that it would take me forever to get back and I'll be rolling into Portland at like, midnight or something. No, I leave Yachats at 7 a.m. I'm in Portland by 3 p.m. And I get the whole rest of my day. And it's a short ride back to my brother's place in Northeast Portland. And boom. I'm super excited about this. I love the element of public transit. I've integrated that in so many of my bike tours. But I'm really super stoked that now I can finally do a self-contained Oregon trip using my bike and public transit. And there's an element of you gotta make these. It's a little bit of a race. I'm not a racer, but I kind of like all of these elements. And then the nice thing is the buses are all kind of designed to fit together. So one's gonna get there, and then another one's gonna be there for you waiting. And there's some minimal waits for some of these, but it's actually kind of cool. So I'm kind of psyched about this. That is the entire thing. A few notes for you. I'm going to be buying the 7-day pass. Oh, Northwest Connector, by the way, is the name of that northern section of the public transit agencies. The beauty of that's $30. $30 gets me a trip from Portland out to the coast, full unlimited rides on that section of the public transit system, including, well, and it's going to be most important, of course, on the way back, because I'm not going to be taking it on the way down, but also the ride back. So it ends up being a really great value there. That plus the $25, I think it is, for Curry County Transit, that's going to be it. That'll be the total cost for me. So that's pretty good for transporting me and my bike over the course of those days. I really like that. NorthwestOregonTransit.org. See, I can actually give you the link now. The border run day, I think, is going to be the most fun. The miles between Harris Beach State Park and the border are really flat and easy for those of you who've ever done it. They're actually, after all of the hilliness of the Oregon coast, it's kind of nice to just hammer out some miles. I really like that. And, I may, like I said, I may offload, I may not, but we'll have to see how it goes. Early mornings, I talked about that already. Harris Beach State Park is about a mile away. The bus pickup's near the Fred Meyer, so that kind of helps. That'll be pretty good. And that final day is kind of crazy. It's a very early morning in Yachats, followed by 4 buses with 3 connections. The good news, like I said, they're designed to fit together, so it should work. If I'm up and rolling at dawn out of Yachats, I should be pulling into Portland at 3 p.m. I think that's crazy, and I love it. Another bit of notes for you on this tour, the pack list. I think that I have decided to start experimenting more with a bike packy style setup. I am getting more and more interested in that. I'm seeing more people adopt it. I think that that's the trend in bicycle touring, to really start to minimize things down. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go stove and cook kit free. I found that on the Oregon coast, I tend to eat out a lot because it's good food and it's easy and it's simple. So by getting rid of all of that kind of stuff, the stove, the cook kit, and things like that, that's a lot of space that's freed up. I think that I might allow me to experiment and go pannier free, which is sad because you all know I love my orange and I love my orange panniers, but I'm thinking of saying no. I'm thinking of saying no. So the advantages to all this: less profile, less wind resistance, lighter weight, easier packing. Downside, of course, no in-camp cooking, no morning coffee in camp. That's the one that's going to get me the most, I think. And I have less waterproof storage. The good news is, if you're familiar with the Oregon coast in the summer, it's not atypical to go an entire week without rain. It's not atypical to get a little shower, but it's rarely that kind of driving rain that I've had on both of my big tours so far this year. But that's what you get for doing Washington State in March, you dummy. Which bike? I am going to be taking my main bike. I'm going to be taking Sequoia, the main touring bike that I have. Alaska Airlines, I think I've talked about this a few times, is my personal choice for flying these days because bicycles count as sports equipment under their rules, and sports equipment flies for $25. Or if you've got like the fancy MVP status like I do, because I fly out to the great state of Oregon frequently and to the great state of Washington frequently, I get 2 free bags. Do I get 2? I get 2 free bags, and so one of them can be my bike. That's pretty great. And then the other one can be, my gear with sharp stuff. So anyways, that's how I'm going to roll this time around. Sequoia rides again. Quick sidebar. See, I wrote in paragraphs in my show notes and I shouldn't have done that, but here we go. Quick sidebar on this new Curry Transit Discovery. I think this is new. I should not read this. Someone locally may know otherwise on this, whether it is new or not. The Curry County Transit System connects to the south as well as connecting to the north. Well, that's kind of interesting, just not for my tour, but something I want to pass along to all of you. It connects down to Smith River, California, which is well down in that area, and that connects with Redwood Coast Transit. Redwood Coast Transit goes all the way to Arcata, California. Now you're really cooking with gas, because Arcata, then you've got other connections from there as well that you can do. So if you really want to do a fast forward on the Pacific Coast, and you're sort of like, I don't want to do these parts, you've got options now all of a sudden to really zoom through some stuff. Now, you'd be zooming through some of the best stuff, but let's say you are like running out of time. You need to get to San Francisco like I have on an occasion. One time I had to actually turn around and go back because I didn't have enough time to get to San Francisco. Well, now I don't have to worry about that because there are fast forwards available. And I wouldn't have to miss the Avenue of the Giants. I could cut off a day or two if that's all you need, just by doing something like this. Granted, you are missing some great stuff, but if the Avenue of the Giants is a definite on your list, you can get down there a lot quicker using the connections here between Curry County Transit and Redwood Coast Transit. Pretty cool. So I've got all that in the show notes. Just something to play around with. If you're local, I would love to hear from you. This is all kind of new. It's a great option. Good way for adding a 0 day and still be productive. There's in terms of your movement. It's really great. So that's it. Oregon Coast, August. Looking forward to it. I don't have much more else to say other than it is a ride I love repeating. You know that. I love that there's a new element to it. I love there's kind of a stunt element to it. And of course, I'll be doing lots of recordings on all of this. And I may also be doing some videos as well, because I think that those worked out pretty well for this last tour in Missouri. So we're going to give that a shot. And I'm excited to share that all with you. And I was excited to stumble onto something like this because I feel like that every once in a while I come up with something that might be helpful for bike tourists in the various places that I like to bike tour. And that this feels like it might be one of them. So anyways, more to come. All right, live show people. We're going to take a little bit of a break because I noticed that you've been prolifically chatting and I need to like kind of take a break here and do that. But rest assured, we'll be continuing with the podcast in a moment. But first, bubbly water break. If you're as impressed as I am that my dogs have not attacked each other yet, I'm impressed. Anyways, let's look. Let's see. Oh, a lot of Brocdidus in there. There's a shock. Good Lord, you're in Portland. La 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 la. I'm just. Bear with me now. I'm just reliving your conversations over this. Western Express. Hills do equal sweat. This is mostly chatting amongst yourselves. This is lovely. Tim is doing what I've always wanted to. Well, it shall be good. It shall be good. Brocdidus, yes, SodaStream. It is indeed, and it's like vintage bottle that, you know how it says on the side? I don't know if any of you are SodaStream heads like myself. It basically says, yo, replace this bottle after a year. No. This thing's going to blow up before I replace it. That's all I have to say. Brock says that he almost got banned from the chat last time for prolific typing. Not by me, sir. And I'm the one who controls this. I'm the controller of the Pedalshift YouTube channel. There's no other admin that I'm aware of. Byron asks, how long does it take everyone to break camp? I seem to take at least 90 minutes. Byron, that's an excellent little question here in our little interim here before we break into the second half of the show. I take about an hour. I find that it is, I try to do it even faster, especially with those early mornings, SodaStream. But it's almost always an hour, regardless of how quickly or how much I packed the night before. It just seems I fill that time, so I always allow myself an hour. Sometimes I do take longer, especially if I make breakfast or coffee or stuff like that. It's funny, in the mornings, I always feel rushed, even if I'm not. This last trip this past weekend, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes here, I felt so rushed and had no reason to be rushed. There was no schedule for me. There was no reason to rush, but I was just like, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just my style of touring. I'm just always on the move. And especially if you do multi-days in a row, I find you really need to kind of keep moving. And well, at least my psyche has. I don't know. Brock says 30 minutes if not making coffee or breakfast. See, you're a speed demon, man. Brock, this is my hero. I'm telling you, people. Hey, everybody. I think we're going to do the second half of the show now. We're going to be talking about the C&O and Pacific Coast updates because it's good news. It's good news. Plus, I have a fun story about my discoveries here. I was watching World Cup today, and the reason why you can't see this, but my phone it just got a retweet, and it was a retweet of like 73 French flags in a row because France won the World Cup, and that was my dim-witted reaction. Oh, I also posted a lot of GIFs from the La Marseille scene from Casablanca. It's a pop culture reference, maybe 4 or 5 of you get, but it's pretty cool. Play it. Okay, we're going to get back into the show here. Hopefully the snoring and the frogs and the crickets. There's probably not frogs here. It's probably crickets. Hope it's not distracting. All right, next up on the show is the C&O and Pacific Coast updates that I have been promising. So let's start with the Pacific Coast first. The good news is Big Sur is just about ready to reopen. For those of you who did not know, Highway 1 had a massive mud flow. I'll call it a flow because it was a landslide. Half the mountain fell on Highway 1, and it just closed everything down for a better part of the last year. There are some reports, they are imminently going to be doing the opening here. Some reports of bicycles being permitted through on a nicely compacted dirt and gravel road. There are some reports also of some security dudes sitting on a chair at Gorda, which is the little teeny tiny town where this is sort of at where the cutoff is, stopping people from doing that. So your mileage may vary for this interim period, but it sounds like by end of this month, and I'll have a link in the show notes to some of the various sources that have been saying that. I think I've been putting it on Facebook as well. It's opening up, and that is just fantastic. Now, what I would love is if we get the road to ourselves for a little while. If it's open for bikes but not cars for a bit, that would be pretty dope. I would love to hear that. But finally, so many people do the Pacific Coast. It is, as I mentioned on the couple podcasts ago, it's in my Triple Crown for long distance. I think it is a fantastic route, and having a hard cutoff, a hard detour that has frankly a sucky detour, that, to use another word, sucks. So I'm super glad that that is back. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to possibly doing it again soon. Bad news. The C&O closure at around mile marker 52 seems to be in full, and I'll use this for the camera people in the live show, shrug mode from the Park Service if all you're going by is their website. So let me read that. They've got the closure between mile markers 51.5 and mile marker 54 at the Brunswick Family Campground. Towpath closed, NPS reports. Due to a washout at Culvert 82, the towpath is closed in this section. There is no detour in place at this time. From the west, exit the towpath in Brunswick, or from the east at mile post 50.9. And then they have a couple of possibilities for local shuttles to get around the detour. And the reason is the roads around there are not safe for biking. Period. End of sentence. I'm sure that there are people that could do it, but it's not recommended. Really narrow, really windy, tough riding too. It's a typical kind of Appalachia. It's kind of straight up, straight down kind of a thing, and a lot of it. So that's what the Park Service says. And I was really bummed about that when I first heard this. A friend of the show, Preston Piper, has put up some videos of it. It looked daunting. It looked lousy. It breaks my heart. You guys know, all of you, that I love this trail. So this weekend, I finally got a chance, after all the stuff going on in my life with all my travels and stuff like that. I haven't had a chance to get on the C&O at all, mainly because the weather's been so terrible and difficult, and my schedule's been kind of back and forth. I haven't been able to get on the trail, so finally I got on the trail. And originally I was going to take Bell Star with me, talked about it in the pre-show. didn't end up happening because it was just that little bit too hot. We had a huge break in the temperatures. Frankly, this was the best weekend, I think, all year by a wide margin for riding on the C&O. It was dry, it was beautiful, the humidity broke, it was nice, but not quite enough for a little pug who has trouble breathing. So I left her at home. And I started riding out there, and it was gorgeous. And I had some great pictures. I hope you got a chance to see them over on Instagram and the other various socials as well. And my goal was to go out to that closure and see what it looked like. And I'm gonna post some videos because there's some really interesting things I discovered. Let me do the lawyerly kind of thing here and start off by saying, I want to be really clear here at the outset. I am not advocating for anyone to do anything illegal here. Brock, you can chime in here because what is it? Because it would be wrong. I witnessed a few things, however, when I was out there, and I want to pass along this information to you if the C&O is at all in your to-do list for this summer in particular, because I think that this is going to be an all-summer kind of thing. I got out there, and the first thing I did was I go up to the edge of this crevasse that has been formed, basically the whole culvert, and it was stone and steel, and the thunderstorms that came through just swept it away. I mean, I've never seen the power of Mother Nature destroy anything quite like that in a long time. It was amazing. And there were a bunch of people who were trying to get through it. And they went down, directly down from the trailhead, and they went directly up. And it's about maybe 20 to 30 feet. You'll see on the videos when I put it up. And it was a Herculean effort. And it looked like no fun at all. Waist-high water. It was bad. Let me also say that there are train tracks up above. And the CSX folks were very present there to make sure nobody was going to go there. Do not recommend going on CSX tracks. A, because you could get hit by a train. I mean, that's part of it. But also, they are super big on enforcing things, and I think they've been very, very active to make sure that people don't get on the train tracks to go through it. Although many people have, because you can tell by how things have gone. It is one of the harder ways to do it, too. So I don't recommend it for any reason whatsoever. It's definitely trespassing, definitely illegal. Don't recommend because it looks stupid hard, too. So I watched a paracyclist do the crossing. I found a substantially easier route while I was standing there. So I'm looking right, watching them do this, and then I look left, and I look down, and I see there's this gentle slope down to the water level, and it looks like that the water is a lot less deep there. And then so I backtrack a little bit, and I start seeing little red flags to the left of the trail. And that got me going, huh, those are surveyor flags. Who would be coming out here with surveyor flags on federal property owned and operated by the National Park? Oh, the Park Service is trying to figure out a way to make this thing all work. So Sherlock Holmes here figured this all out. There were red flags that led me down there. And they also took out a few trees along the way as well. It is manifestly clear to me that the Park Service is working on a temporary workaround at the very least, and they're not trying to hide it at all. But you got to know what you're looking for. So if you are coming from DC, if you're coming from the either, I guess it's sort of from the south and east at that point, it'll be on the left-hand side of the trail, and it's a very gentle way down. You can roll your bike down, even fully loaded. It's pretty easy. There's one drop of about maybe 3 or 4 feet. It's not too bad to do with a loaded bike. And then you can cross with your bike through a few inches of water on a dry day. Now, if there's rain, it's going to be a lot more. But going up, there's a bit of a haul for your bike. It's only 3 or 4 feet, as opposed to, say, 20 feet, which is what the other side of the washout had. And then you follow the little red flags all the way up, and boom, you are on the other side of the trail. Same, of course, going the opposite direction. It is clearly something that the Park Service is doing on purpose. I thought for a moment, would there be anybody else that would be doing something like that obviously, with that kind of marking? And although I can't say for sure that it isn't some other entity or party, I can't believe that they would take the risk of doing something like that on Park Service property. So I think what's happening right now is the Park Service is perhaps, and I'm speculating here, gently suggesting, because they know people are going to go around it, and they know that there are stupid, unsafe ways, i.e. taking the train tracks, to go around this, they're making a safer way, but they're not really publicizing it. That is my best guess. One other thing I wanted to say is that the towpath is officially quote-unquote closed, but there is no trespassing signs around that area. Now, I'm not trying to be lawyer here or anything like that, but that's not much of a distinction, but it's worth noting. And the fact that those flags are left in place, it's very clear that there's a path that's in place. I think that this is the Park Service's beginnings of an attempt to create an official workaround, and maybe also their tacit approval, maybe that's overstating it, of a way to get around this outage. And it's pretty easy based on what I saw. Again, I am not advocating anything illegal. If it turns out this is illegal, then don't do this. But it was interesting because I saw people coming from both directions wanting to go past it. And there were also a couple of locals who were biking nearby, and it was very clear that this has been done a lot. So if I were to speculate and guess, I think that the Park Service realized that there were going to be people that were going to be taking unnecessary risks to do bad idea ways to travel around it, and they figured out a way to take down a tree or two, clear out some space, and then flag out some things to make an easier, safer route. So that's there for you. I will have a video that will show what I saw, and some of it is kind of hysterical because doing it the hard way that's not the stupid way. There's a stupid way, the stupid illegal way on the tracks. Nobody did that. Then there's the hard way, and I got some film of some guys doing that. And then there's the better way, which is the way that Sherlock Holmes here, figured out by seeing those big red and orange flags. I'm not saying that I was Sherlock Holmes. It was just kind of funny. Okay, so that is the good news. That is what we've got on the C&O. Look for a video in the Pedalshift feed sometime relatively soon. I'm hoping to get that out sometime this week, maybe before this podcast hits the Podosphere on the Thursday at 7 a.m. like it usually does, for those of you on the live show. If you're in the podcast feed, if you're listening to this right now, go check it out. It might be in the show notes, pedalshift.net/127. If it's not there, I will give a mea culpa and tell you when I hope to get it out. Maybe this weekend. We'll see. Folks, that's all we've got for this episode of the podcast. I want to thank everybody in the live show for coming in. We're going to kind of chat a little bit more after the fact. But normally what I do, of course, is we have the thank yous for all the Pedalshift Society members. Some of you are in the room. Thank you again for being a part of the Pedalshift Society. I'm going to give one little bit of a plug for that. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing nowadays is because I get the support from you, the gentle listener and supporter through the Pedalshift Society. It is one of the things that makes the Culbertsons, both of you Culbertson brothers are definitely Pedalshift Society members, because I'm just going to say, it's a little awkward going Scott Culbertson, Paul Culbertson, or is it Paul and Scott? I can't remember which order I have it. But then it's Culbertson, which is a wonderful name, but saying it twice in a row with another short name in between, it's difficult, but I appreciate your support. Thank you. In any event, the support that I get from you guys, it's really, really helpful. I appreciate it, and it helps make the show better. It's allowed me to be able to do more things, and I hope to be able to expand the offerings, as I always say at the end of every show. So thank you. That's where we cut. So those of you in the live broadcast, thank you so much for coming. It was a nice intimate group today. Brock, thank you for holding down the fort. I appreciate that. Thank you, Stickstring, for what you do. No, you, the listener. I do that with my nephew, my little nephew. I'm like, don't press the button when we FaceTime. He thinks it's hysterical. I don't know if it is, but anytime he really laughs, I just have to keep doing it. Let me go to the chat room here. Brian Bechtold, enjoyed your Katy Trail coverage and videos. I'm wanting to do a 3-day trip on the Katy in October for the first time. Any tips? Yeah, I would say every tip that I've got about the Katy is in that 7th chapter, that sort of coda chapter. I think the fall is a great time to do it. I think that's probably the best time to do it. 3 days on the trail, I would focus on the western part, excuse me, the eastern part. After Sedalia, things really pick up. So I think that that's really all good. But wherever you go, it's really good. They're expanding also the Rock Island Trail, I understand. And that was a really fun route as well. So no matter where you go, wherever you're starting from, the towns are pretty cool. I definitely have my favorites in terms of what was available. Sedalia is a little bit bigger, but please find your correct route because we all know how that went for me. But in any event, have a good time. It's so good. I was kind of half expecting me to be a little all Team CNO, Team Gap. No, it's good. It's really good. It's really, really good. Byron, thanks for all your podcasts. You and the Sprocket kept me company last tour via Bluetooth speaker. You know what? You can listen on earbuds if you want, sir. I do. I know. I get hassled sometimes. I get hassled for that. I get hassled for occasionally not wearing a helmet on non-traffic sources. Thank you for your concerns. I appreciate that. Seriously. I mean, everyone needs to ride their own ride. That's what I would say. And I should do a Bluetooth speaker. That's just dumb. I should do it. Let's see. What else? Anything else? Let's see. Paul says, sounds like a fun tour. Yeah, I'm super stoked for this Oregon thing. It's not something new, but it repeats stuff that I love. I love starting in Newport or ending in Newport. It's a great way. It's a perfect place to start a tour. And that's why I always say South Beach State Park too, because most people end up at the other one. Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. Somebody who knows the Newport area and the two state parks. The one that the book always recommends is a little bit more remote from the city, and it's on the north side of the city. And the one in South Beach, you get Rogue Brewers on the Bay. I hate that beer makes me love something that much more, but I just love that campground. It's really great. It's a good place to do it. And I love the stunt. I love me a stunt. I love the whole bring it on back with the mass transit and being able to do that without a car, without having to, get a tour company or anything like that. I think it's all going to be really cool. And I'm also excited about trying out a little bit more of a bike packy setup. I think that that's going to be kind of fun too. So it's going to be a fun tour, and I'm glad to bring y'all along. I bring y'all along on all these things, hopefully. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to let y'all go. It was a good show. You helped make this 127th edition of the pod that much better. It will be out for your listening enjoyment on Thursday at 7 a.m., just like always. And we'll do another live show again soon. I think I'm in this every other month kind of thing, so maybe we'd be looking at September. So kind of jot that one down. It probably would be later in the month. I'm also looking at doing another tour in September as well, so we might be more end of the month or into early October. But I like doing these live shows, and if you like them, then we're going to keep doing them because, frankly, they're brain dead easy to do. I set my phone up. I got multiple computers. I record. I talk into the microphone. Telling you, my adult brain can even figure it all out. So thank you for joining. We will see you all next time for the next live show and also on the podcast. And Oregon people, I'm going to be out there, so maybe I'll get the chance to see you too. Take care, everyone. Now's the hard part. I got to figure out how to do this thing. Bye.